All right, so we're back for chapter 5, a conspiracy unmasked, and in this chapter we are obviously leading on from the fourth, which ended as the hobbits, well, three chief hobbits, including maggots. So there's four, but Frodo, Sam, and Pippin arrive at the ferry and they meet Merry, right? And the whole time they've essentially been cutting over fields and all of this stuff to get away from the road so as to not be seen by Black Riders. There's a lot of great dialogue, and they have a meeting with Farmer Maggot. So definitely go and check out that last video, a shortcut to mushrooms, thoughts, and discussion. But yeah, so let's jump right in to our fifth chapter here, which is a conspiracy unmasked, and I want to start with, as I often do, some origins of language and just talk about, Buckland and the Brandywine and Buckhall, and the Brandy Bucks just first, because we get a bit of a picture. Tolkien sets the stage here for what this little thickly inhabited strip on the banks of the Brandywine is about. But first, let's just, because they're at the ferry now, so they start the chapter essentially by crossing the Brandywine. And I just wanted to look here. Again, this is from the Hobbits of Tolkien, David Day. We're looking at the language origins. In English, the name of the river can be translated as Golden Brown River or Border River. And I'll talk about this kind of borderiness in a second. But its origin is Elvish. Bandarin River is a potential origin. The Elvish Baran meaning golden brown, and then obviously adding Duin, Baran Duin meaning large. So simply that could translate to just a large golden brown river. Another derivation could potentially be Branda Nin, which is Hobbitish. Branda in Hobbitish it means border, and the little suffix there of nin alluding to water. So like a border river. So you got the large brown golden river, that you got the border ring river, and then also another Hobbitish derivation, Bralda him, meaning Bralda meaning like heady, meaning ale kind of thing. And so maybe alluding to a Hobbit kind of joke that it's a pun on the border river, and the river becomes brandy because of its frothy brown colour, brandy obviously being a drink. But I thought this was cool because, yeah, the Brandywine as a geographical feature is quite big. It's quite symbolic of a transitional kind of phase that these hobbits are undergoing. And actually commented on my last thoughts and discussion, Alex McKee was actually talking about this. He's talking about the last chapter, and he's talking about how it's kind of a liminal chapter. It takes place in liminal spaces. And I think, yeah, that's totally a great theme to have picked up on. And it's kind of present through a lot of these chapters here, particularly Shortcut to Mushrooms and the start of this chapter here, as we're kind of on the border of lands. We're going through this transition phase. We're going to see in the next chapter they're going to leave the Shire. So definitely got that. And the Brandywine, there's a lot to be drawn out of its name there. I also want to just quickly talk about the Brandy Bucks themselves and the word Brandy Buck, which I think is a very it doesn't really take much thought to kind of get, oh, this kind of makes sense. It's quite obvious. But obviously brandy is a strong spirited drink, which comes from firebrand. It's like a fiery drink. And then the buck is a stag, a leader of a herd of deer, but also could be referring to, a wild young man or someone of young blood. So combining these two things together, brandy and buck, you kind of get, and I'm going to quote the book here, there is no doubt of the buckish nature of the Brandy Bucks. They are sort of high-spirited hobbits who might order a few drams of brandy during an evening of hobnobbing. They were also thought to be reckless because they lived beyond the borders of the Shire, polite Shire society. They feared the crossed border waters they fearlessly crossed the border waters of the Brandywine River and settled on the wild borderlands of Buckland. So you get this idea that these hobbits are a little bit more rowdy and maybe even a little bit tookish and adventurous, crossing the Brandywine. But yeah, I just thought this is a great kind of spot to unpack that, because Tolkien really is a master of world building, and there is a lot to get into. But we won't spend too much more time on that. So let's actually get into the chapter itself. So we've got Chapter 5, Conspiracy Unmasked. And yes, we start at the ferry. They meet Merry. They cross the ferry. We get this lot of exposition about the Buckley, Brandy Hall, Brandy Bucks, and Old Gordon had Old Buck, the founder. But then kind of the chief little event here is that as they get to the far side of the Brandywine River, Sam turns back and they notice a black figure, or it actually says here, it looked like a dark bundle left behind. But as they looked, it seemed to move and sway this way and that as if searching the ground. Then it crawled or went crouching back into the gloom beyond the lamps. This is obviously a Black Rider. And it seems that they didn't cross the river, couldn't have crossed it too soon. They were in the nick of time. And for Merry, this is his first glimpse of these mysterious black figures that have been haunting and chasing and worrying the other three hobbits for the last few days, in the last few chapters. So then we kind of get more exposition about Brandy Hole, and then we arrive at Crick Hollow. And this is where the chapter starts to really pick up. So Crick Hollow is obviously where Frodo, or everyone thinks, that Frodo's going to live. So he's left Bag End, and now he's going to live at Crick Hollow, and the general idea is that he's going to be settling down there for a quiet life. And so at this point, he is still thinking that his friends are assuming that this is where he's going to live, You're going to see that, we do see just here on the page I'm on, that Merry and Fatty Bolger have gone to great lengths to set up the house as much like it was at Bag End. Many of old Bilbo's possessions are there, and and Frodo at this point is very anxious because he is realizing that he's going to have to come to a point where he's going to have to tell his friends that I'm not even going to stay here for probably even a day. I'm moving on really fast. This is no quiet retirement. This is the start of a formidable journey. And obviously that is what that opening up and discussion of that is what this entire chapter is about, and it's done exceedingly well. But before we get on to the dialogue there, I did want to just touch on Pippin's bath song. They go into the house and they're all weary. They've been traveling all day, and then Merry's already set up 3 tubs with soap and towels and all of this, and it's just an incredible little ditty here. It's one of Bilbo's favourite bath songs, and here it is here. Sing hey for the bath at close of day that washes the weary mud away. O loon is he that will not sing. O water hot is a noble thing. O sweet is the sound of falling rain and the brook that leaps from hill to plain. But better than rain or rippling streams is water hot that smokes and steams. O water cold we may pour at need, down thirsty throat and be glad indeed. But better is beer if drink we lack, and hot water poured down the back. O water is fair that leaps on high, in fountain white beneath the sky, but never did fountain sound so sweet as splashing hot water with my feet. At which point, it says here that there's a shout of "Whoa!" and it appears that a lot of Pippin's bathwaters imitated a fountain and leapt on high. And it just fills me with joy. There's a little bit. And I think, as I've discussed before, and I won't get too much into, Tolkien is incredibly gifted at portraying the simple joys in life, and there is a lot to be learnt from kind of the hobbity, rustic simplicity that is on display. And we can get a lot out of that, and kind of how to take joy and how to be content from the simple things in life. But we're already at 10 minutes. Let's actually get into the beef of the chapter. So, Frodo is being pursued by Black Riders. We know about the Crest of the Ring, and he's going to Rivendell, right? He thinks, key point, that his friends think that he's staying in Crick Hollow, and he's getting to the point where he's about to open up. But before he does, they just talk a little bit about their adventures and all of this kind of thing. And then Pippin essentially says, were the guesses of old Farmer Maggot, very shrewd guesses, as we got into last chapter, are they good? You know? And he just, Pippin says, you can at least tell us if that Maggot's guesses were good or bad. And Frodo talks about that. And then he says at last, well, I can't keep it in the dark any longer. I've got something to tell you all, but I don't know how to begin. And then, quite unexpectedly, to everyone, Frodo, but also the audience, Merry chimes in and says, I think I could help you by telling some of it myself. And we're like, oh, hang on, what the hell? This whole thing's meant to be secret about him going away in the quest of the ring and going to Rivendell. Only Gandalf, Sam, and Frodo are really aware of it at this point, to our knowledge. But, and I'm going to reference this comment, another comment from the same Alex McKee, who says here, Farmer Maggot's shrewd guesses are indeed interesting. It also nicely sets up the fact that Frodo's secret isn't as hard to guess as it might seem at first, which foreshadows the reveal that Merry, Pippin, and Fredegar know all about his secret too, more or less, from having guessed a lot. And so thank you very much for that great take there. I love the fact that I've got someone commenting on these discussions, but yeah, totally. We get kind of like it feeds into the kind of audience's subconscious, or the reader's subconscious, and we kind of can see now that kind of leading on in what the chapter goes on to reveal is a very efficient conspiracy taken by Merry, Pippin, Fredegar, and Sam, who eventually shut up and kind of was essentially under oath or had a solemn duty to perform for Gandalf and Frodo and was no longer a source of information. But yes, we go on to see that Merry saw Bilbo's ring, read the book, and they've been keeping very, very close tabs on Frodo, who is mentioning all these sorts of ludicrous things as, when should I look down into that valley again, I wonder, and all of these sorts of things. And we're led to believe, like, of course, Frodo has some very dear friends who love him very much and spend a lot of time in his company. Of course, it makes so much sense. He wouldn't have been able to hoodwink them that easily. And it all kind of fits into place a little bit. And Frodo's like, oh, wait, hang on. This could be horrible. Is all the Shire onto me now? Like, he's like, is all the Shire discussing my departure? And they're like, no. You got to remember, we're your good friends, Frodo, and we know you quite well. And this is a little bit something that I always find a little bit hard to unpack. Oh yeah. So it starts. This kind of theme starts with before Merry's revealed that they know about the ring, and Frodo says this: "My dear and most beloved hobbits," Frodo says, deeply moved. Said Frodo, deeply moved. But I could not allow it. I decided that long ago too. You speak of danger, but you do not understand. This is no treasure hunt, no there and back journey. I'm flying from deadly peril into deadly peril. And I think in this little line we can get a real sense of the impending danger and doom and just gravitas of what this journey will be. And then Merry obviously just says, of course we understand. And then we go and see, he knows about the ring. But I find this a little hard to stomach. Because we kind of end up seeing that, actually in Rivendell, Elrond's like to Merry and Pippin, saying that they shouldn't go because they don't understand. And Gandalf actually says, I believe, that neither does Frodo. None of us really quite understand the full extent of this peril, and actually vouches for Pippin, quite unexpectedly vouches for Pippin to go on and be a part of the Fellowship into the next chapter of the journey. But it is just kind of a sense that, like, I still kind of feel like, even though Merry says, of course we understand, they just really don't. And really at the end of it, Sam and Frodo are the ones that are going to bear the brunt of the kind of really morbid, dark elements of this adventure, and Merry and Pippin, while they definitely do see their fair share of danger and manage to pull through, they kind of, I don't know, it just, I don't know. I just thought I would bring that up because it's just an interesting thing, and we all already kind of see it. But Merry does say, really in the end, and he kind of redeems that statement, which was a little perhaps obnoxious, but he does redeem it by saying we'll stick to you through thick and thin to the bitter end, and you can trust us to keep any secret of yours closer than you keep it yourself. Blah 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 blah. We know most of what Gandalf has told you. We know a great deal about the ring. We are horribly afraid, but we are coming with you or following you like hounds. So, it's the friendship thing, right? Obviously. So even though they might not quite understand the full extent, even though they think they've got enough of a grip on it, it is a really admirable sense of loyalty, which I have no problem with. And then one of my favorite points in this chapter is the song that Merry and Pippin sing. It's modelled on a dwarvish song, and I'll also sing this one as well because it's again reasonably short. Here we go. Farewell we call to hearth and hall, though wind may blow and rain may fall. We must away at break of day, far over wood and mountain tall, to Rivendell where elves yet dwell, in glades beneath the misty fell. Through moor and waste we ride in haste, and whither then we cannot tell. With foes ahead and dread behind, beneath the skies shall be our bed. Oh no, with foes ahead, behind us dread, with beneath the sky shall be our bed, until at last our toil be past, our journey done, our errand sped. We must away, we ride before the break of day. This is actually one of my favourite walking songs. Not necessarily while I'm walking, but like kind of as I'm setting out or things like that when I wake up in a tent on a multi-day hike. It's just really got this sense of grandiose, and we're off on an adventure, and it's kind of a bit dark, and there is a certain amount of dread in what's ahead. But yeah, no, I'm really quite fond of it, and of all the dwarvish kind of songs that we get in Lord of the Rings. But let's just I've got one more kind of thing to unpack about this chapter, which I don't really know if I'm going to do a very good job of it, because I don't know, I haven't seen anyone actually do a good job of it, but at the very end we get Frodo's dream, and I'll read it out. Eventually he fell into a vague dream in which he seemed to be looking out of a high window over a dark sea of tangled trees. Down below the roots there was the sound of creatures crawling and snuffling. He felt sure they would smell him out sooner or later. Then he heard a noise in the distance. At first he thought it was a great wind coming over the leaves of the forest. Then he knew that it was not leaves, but the sound of the sea far off. A sound he had never heard in waking life, though it had often troubled his dreams. Suddenly he found he was out in the open. There were no trees after all. He was on a dark heath, and there was a strange smell of salt in the air. Looking up before him, he saw a white tower climbing alone on a high ridge. A great desire came over him to climb the tower and see the sea, but he started to struggle up the ridge towards the tower, but suddenly a light came in the sky, and there was a noise of thunder. I don't know if there is like a right way to interpret this, like what the dream actually means. Tolkien has an incredible level of nuance in his writings, and as dreams usually do, they are quite ambiguous, and there's never like a rock solid kind of message to get from them. But there are certain elements here that you can really draw on, such as obviously the sea. I find it a really interesting line when it says, the sound of the sea far off he had never heard in waking life, though it had often troubled his dreams. Like, this is something that's happened before. He's heard the sea before. And obviously that's not as fantastical in Tolkien's setting as it would be in real life. You know, like hearing a sound that you've never actually heard before and knowing what it is, but only in a dream. Like, that's a pretty supernatural thing to happen. I don't know if that's even possible. Like, if you've never heard the sea before, to hear it in a dream. Anyway, but the importance of that, I think, is obviously that in the end, Frodo's journey will take him over the sea, to the Undying Lands, to the uttermost west, to Valinor, and I don't know how much this has to do with it, but there's definitely a sense when I read this now of a calling, a destiny, something that you know, is he hears it in dreams. Like, I don't know. I'd be really interested to hear in the comments, or just find further resources, because this to me is just one of these, like the fox in Three's Company that just randomly turns up, and just we get a bit of dialogue, a bit of his thoughts about what the hell the hobbits are doing here, and he's like, oh, this is unusual, hobbits sleeping out of doors, there's something mighty queer about this. Again, like that, like I feel like this is a little bit out of the blue, and I'm not quite sure what to make of it, especially the White Tower. Is it white? Hang on. Yeah, a tall white tower, standing alone on a high ridge. A great desire came over him to climb the tower and see the sea. And then there was a light in the sky, and there was the noise of thunder. And that just, to me, when I think of white towers, I'm thinking of, the Elven City Tuna, or, some craft of Westerness, some Numenorian tower. I'm not sure. Really, really interested to see what anyone else thinks of this. Whoops, dropped the book. But that's going to be all for this chapter, because I'm going to go straight on and record right now the next chapter, Old Forest, in which there is also a plentiful amount to talk about. Because at the moment, I'm not sure if anyone who's watching this Thoughts and Discussion series is actually quite aware. I'm doing this in conjunction with an audiobook. So I'm reading out the chapter and then doing a breakdown about it. But obviously the only things that have been uploaded onto the Talefire, my channel so far, are the discussions, because I'm not quite sure how to do the audiobook in terms of uploading it, copyrights, whether it's worth doing, or maybe I could just have an unlisted playlist. I'm not sure, because it could quite easily just flood the channel full of just 50-minute chapters that no one's going to be particularly interested to listen to, unless they've kind of listened to the first ones and have already listened to the previous installments, and it's going to be a lot of time to cut out. Also, the point of the audiobook, for me, I'm thinking now, is not so that people can listen to it. Well, that's a secondary motive. It's just so that I can kind of do it. I've always wanted to make an audiobook of it and just have me reading it out. And just to have said I've done it. So maybe if anyone's interested, I could make an unlisted playlist of it. Currently, they're all privated on a separate account. But yeah, just let me know. And in that way, these, for me at least, these chapter breakdowns are kind of designed to be listened to in conjunction with a reading of the said chapter, so that we can kind of get a renewed appreciation out of it and delve a bit deeper into it. That's kind of the gist. But thank you for listening, if you did, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Chapter breakdown, which is The Old Forest, which I'm going to start recording right now.